Good evening. Thank you for joining us for Joynews Prime. In this edition, Ghana records 10 more COVID-19 deaths, taking the total death count to 95, as some 411 new cases are recorded across 25 districts and 3 regions of our country. Meanwhile, the Director General for the Ghana Health Service is asking Ghanaians to stop stigmatizing recovered patients because they no longer carry the virus.
Those who are recovered and discharged are free and they are not able to transmit the virus to anybody. So people should receive them and be sure that they are out there and not create any stigma for them.
Relatedly, as over 500,000 final year junior high school students go back to school, fear of a spike in the coronavirus pandemic is a major concern, but government also insists strategies adopted so far will help curb spread.
We appeal to the government to make supply of adequate PPEs to enable us execute our mandate to perfection.
And logically, heads of basic schools want immediate provision of PPEs and training of staff to enable them handle any potential outbreak. Meanwhile, we also do have business, and that will be presented by Sandra Sinamafenu. And in business, Public Interest and Accountability Committee also calls on Parliament to investigate the utilization of Petroleum Holding Fund.
A lot of engagement with Parliament, and we can only continue to engage Parliament to address these issues. But I will say that since PIAC is a citizen-based committee, we need your support in this type of these matters.
Later in the bulletin, the police arrest an 18-year-old girl for stealing the 10-month baby in New Takoradi in the Western region.
Complainant was going to have her bath, so she left the baby in the care of the suspect. She returned from the bathroom and she couldn't find the baby.
On these headlines, we have more stories on for you for the next 2 hours. Stay tuned. And I tell you, we have to get it going. Ghana has so far recorded 10 more COVID-19 deaths, bringing the total death count to some 95. Critical cases are now 6, with 5 on ventilators. 24 patients so far are in severe conditions. Also, some 414 new cases also takes the total case count to some 14,568. Now, with the current discharge and recoveries at 10,907 cases, Ghana so far just have an active case count of some 3,566. Now, the first of the bi-weekly press conferences today, the Ghana Health Service says patients who have so far recovered and discharged are free and unable to transmit the virus. The Director General of the Ghana Health Service, Dr. Patrick Abuaje, who addressed the news conference on COVID-19 case management, also asked Ghanaians to stop stigmatizing recovered patients just because they no longer could carry the virus and therefore cannot infect other persons.
The key highlights of the protocol is that for symptomatic cases, that's for those who are sick, who report with symptoms, cough, fever, etc. They spend 14 days plus 3 days without symptoms. So we are looking more about 17 days. But of course, if you stand longer than that, if your symptoms continue, we will keep you until you are no more. You are able to show 3 days without symptoms, and you will be discharged without a test. For those who do not have any symptoms, it's 14 days after initial positive test, and that should be based on the day the sample is taken, not the day you got your results. So that's when we count the necessary. So like we said, PCR test is no longer necessary. The patients will be reviewed twice at home to see whether they are discharged and they are finally discharged, not necessarily from our facility or from the service, but these are all areas that we may want to look at. Those who are recovered and discharged are free and they are not able to transmit the virus to anybody. So people should receive them and be sure that they are out there and not create any stigma for them. They are free. We isolate people because they can transmit to somebody else. We only release people who are unable to transmit the virus to another person.
Meanwhile, the National COVID-19 Management Team has justified Ghana Health Service decision to discharge a symptomatic patient 14 days after positive test. Ghana last week revised its discharge policy that saw over 5,000 patients discharged. Addressing that news conference, a member of the management team, Dr. Joseph Oliver Comey, said the decision was backed by science and some experiments conducted countrywide.
Most of the people we had initially, to de-isolate them, we had to do 2 PCR tests to say that they should be de-isolated. In this country, we've also looked at what we've been seeing. We had the opportunity of having people from mandatory quarantine. So we saw when they tested positive and when they recovered. On the average, it was 14 days from positive to having double negative. On the average, it was 14 days. So when we also looked at the evidence from Singapore, looked at the evidence from China, the Germans have been very quiet, but they've been doing a lot of work. To say that the virus is not infectious, you must culture the virus. We haven't been able to culture here. A lot of people haven't been able to culture. The Chinese have done it. The Germans have done it. The Canadians have done it. The Singapore people have also done it. And if you look at all the data, they all say that after day 8 of infectivity, whatever you have, the viruses they tried to culture, they couldn't culture them. It's also said that most people can remain PCR positive after you have told them that they are negative. I stand here to say that I have seen people in Ghana testing positive up to day 40. But these people are still at home, still doing what they have to do. We have looked at families where they've had people from mandatory quarantine who were still positive up to day 40, and none of their family members have tested positive. So there are times when we take certain decisions, we take it from the scientific point of view. We know that we are from case management. WHO guideline looked at 10, average 10 days, but we didn't look at 10 days. We looked at what we have seen from our patients, and we're looking at an average of 14 days. That's when people turn double negative. So yes, you've seen a lot of de-isolation. Once the person tests positive, asymptomatic, after 14 days, we are confident that this person should go home and this person will not infect another person.
Meanwhile, a virologist with the Kumasi Center for Collaborative Research, the KCCR, has cautioned government to tread cautiously in adopting review discharge protocols for COVID-19 carriers recommended by the World Health Organization. According to Dr. Augustine Angelina Silverkin, a wholesale approach to this directive may be detrimental to the strides made by Ghana in a bid to curb the spread of coronavirus. Well, we have to go for a break. When we come back, we'll have these and more stories related to COVID-19 and others right here. Welcome back. We still focus on some COVID stories, and a virologist with the Kumasi Center for Collaborative Research, the KCCR, has cautioned government to tread cautiously in adopting review discharge protocols for COVID-19 carriers as recommended by the World Health Organization. Now, according to Dr. Augustine Angelina Silverkin, a wholesale approach to this directive may be detrimental to the strides made by Ghana in a bid to curb the spread of coronavirus.
So sputum samples may tend to still shed some active or some infectious RNA, and even in the same WHO, the WHO document, they actually cited one study. They named, amazingly, they named it one possible outlier. So there may be some outliers whereby for this particular person in one patient, the viral cultures were positive from upper respiratory tract specimens. It continued to be positive until day 18, even though this person did not show the signs and symptoms of the infection. So I am thinking that as a country, we may want to generate our own local context-based data to enable us or to inform us on some of these discharge protocols. I mean, and some of the studies they actually quoted, they have very, very limited or few number of patients, 9 patients. I mean, I'm just wondering how you can extrapolate results from nine patients. I mean, in another study, they actually included 129 patients, and they themselves concluded that in that particular study, they concluded that 30 of the patients were immunocompromised. But look, we are talking about asymptomatic patients against symptomatic patients. So I am just thinking that, I mean, now the release is already out. Yeah. I don't know if we can go back and tread cautiously. I may appear healthy. I may not even know that I am harboring the virus, but tested, I will turn out to be positive. Yeah. And look, as our number of confirmed cases begin to go up, chances that in the midst of your friends, maybe once a group of people sits together, about 10 people, chances that some of them may be positive, though they may be asymptomatic, may gradually be increasing. In fact, chances that you yourself, you may be positive, is gradually increasing and gradually becoming a reality. I think we should kindly tread cautiously with this straight adoption of this so-called discharge protocol by the WHO.
Well, indeed, this protocol has come under a lot of scrutiny, and we're doing that right here on Joynews Prime. And joining us is Dr. Gabriel Benako. He is the president of the Coalition of NGOs in Health. Now, what is your own take on the revised COVID-19 discharge policy as being adopted by Ghana?
Yeah, Raymond, thank you, Roland, for engaging us. We, the Ghana Coalition of NGO, would like to state that everybody in Ghana should be much more responsible than before in protecting yourself and protecting others within the environment we find ourselves. That's the first thing. The second point is that we all know since January till now, the science and the data have sometimes proved us wrong. about the approaches, about the responses, about the containment measures we put in place globally, and much more specifically in Ghana. We all know that WHO statement is stating that likely, and Roland, you and I know that likely is not 100% assurance. So we should tighten our belt. We should not be over complacent, and Ghana actually should not rush to conclude. We rather need to bring more hands on deck. We rather need to support the Ghana Medical Association, the Ghana Midwife and Nurses Council, the civil society, the various Ghana Education Service leaders, and including the media, to continue to support the government strategic plan in fighting this pandemic. We keep on saying that we tend to rush to conclude. That is not good for Ghana. Other countries have rushed and they have failed. Let's continue to do our bit, and we should not rush to conclude on certain research information. From all the indication and from all the practices in Ghana, we have slipped severally. But today we are saying that let's be patient and make sure that Ghana is for us. We are not running away from Ghana. We are not, nobody is forcing us to take certain decisions for the country. Let's run it in a very slow pace and make sure that our institutions are much more institutionalized. The human resources are much more supported to do the needful, and they can be assured of maximum protection. And civil society must play a critical role, including the media. So we want to say that at this point in time, we need to be consolidating the gains we have made rather than to begin to be complacent about what we are doing.
Now we do know that we have a certain demographics by the population and indicators that we have. And if you just oppose that with what the WHO and some of the best practices in the world, there's every indication that if you have a very young, vibrant population, they tend to be better immune and then and less malnourished than the related sections as we find elsewhere in the world. That also gives us some great benefit to be able to adopt this strategy, doesn't it?
Raymond, I want to put it to you and to Ghanaians. Coronavirus had dribbled everybody in the world. It has dribbled WHO. It has dribbled the giant, robust health systems in the world. And it has dribbled Africa severally. So we need to take the cue from WHO, but we must have our own grown strategies to match with that advisory services from the WHO.
What do you propose?
And I keep on saying that.
What do you propose?
Says likely.
What do you propose?
Look at the report, likely Raymond is not 100%. And so what we need to do, let's have a contextualized situation. After WHO have declared and have given information, have we brought our scientific industry to sit together? What have Ghana done scientifically? And if you remember, Coalition NGO has been talking about Ghana need to have funding for our scientific industry. Yeah. How much are we even giving to our scientists? Why are we basing on WHO? Why are we not having our own grown research data to either support or otherwise of what other countries or other bodies are advising us? So we slip. And that's why we keep on saying that, please, let's be careful, let's be patient. We all know what government officials have talked about, which have not worked, but we keep on saying that we are all Ghanaians. Civil society are part of Ghana. We will never move from anywhere. We are not causing fear and panic. We are contributing our quota, including the media, to let them know that the science sometimes need to be domesticated. So how much are we giving to our scientific industry?
Yeah. Well, your point well made there. And Dr. Gabriel Benako is the president of the Coalition of NGOs in Health, helping us do that discussion as well. And it follows Dr. Silverkin of the KCCR cautioning government to hasten slowly in the adoption of the new discharge policy as being adopted from the WHO. But also related to COVID-19, the presiding member of the Oforukro Municipal Assembly, William Kwabena Boateng, also died of COVID-19. Now, the assemblyman for Ejija Ahimbronum was the elder brother of the medical director of the Kwadaso SDA Hospital, who also apparently died of the illness last week. Mr. Boateng reportedly collapsed and was rushed to a private hospital where he was pronounced dead on arrival at about 9 a.m. last Sunday. News of his death hit his family, which had gathered for the one-week rites of his departed doctor brother. Nigerian news sources at the Ashanti Regional Directorate of the Ghana Health Service is also indicating the state has since taken over the body initially deposited in a private morgue. The Ghana Health Service said it is continuing to increase hospital capacity countrywide to take care of case management for coronavirus. Now, touching on the arrest of people driving alone in vehicles without wearing face masks, the Minister for Information, Kojo Ponkruma, urged the police to give purposive interpretation to the law.
Now, we acknowledge a gray area in the law, which has got to do with individuals who are in their cars, their private cars, by themselves. And we also acknowledge that there's a very strict interpretation that the police intend to give to such scenarios, looking at the text of the law. The lawyers will tell you that there are those who do what they call the literalist interpretation, and then there are those who also do the purposive interpretation. Today, the courts even use what they call the modern purposive approach. So what government is doing is that we're engaging with the police to give the EI a purposive interpretation when they are applying it. And as I mentioned, the purpose or the objective is to compel all persons within public places and in contact with others to wear face covering so that we can curb the rate of transmission. And so engagements have started with the police so that they can give it a more purposive approach. Those will be our remarks on this particular matter.
Now we have to return to the schools because over 500,000 final year junior high school students are expected to report to school on Monday to prepare for their basic education certificate examination. Now, we all do know this follows the reopening of the universities the other week and some senior high schools also this week. But the fear of a spike of coronavirus infection also remains a concern for parents and the government. But the president, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, is optimistic strategies adopted will also help address potential rise in infections of coronavirus. But look, let's do have more on this. And Ohiminteria, we also told you had been following the related issue about the demise of the late doctor of the SDA Hospital at Kwadaso, who passed and apparently also died of COVID-19. At what point in time, Ohiminteria, were you told that his death could be strongly linked to COVID-19?
Thank you, Roland. Even few hours after his death, people started speculating that the late presiding member could have died of COVID-19. In the media, there were a lot of media reportage, though those reports were not attributed to anybody to have confirmed this. But just yesterday, day after his death, then later, some parts of the day, that is later parts of the day, that is when the report came in that indeed he died of COVID-19. Even then, it was difficult for the health professionals to even disclose or confirm this. They say, per the patient charter, they have no right to disclose somebody's private or health status unless or otherwise approved by the family. And the family has also been shattered following the demise of these two great men within the space of 1 week, especially the parents.
But ultimately, it also means that the family is greatly affected. The medical professionals who really are having a certain link of this fatality to coronavirus, have they been able to contact trace any other family member, etc., related to this? Yes,
the Regional Health Directorate says there are already existing protocols, and these protocols are not peculiar only to this particular case. It is all related to COVID-19. So when anyone died of COVID-19, it is strictly adhered to. So the Regional Health Directorate, with the support of the Oforikrom Municipal Health Directorate, have already started working behind the scenes, especially when the report, the confirmation came yesterday that he died of COVID-19. So yes, I would say a lot is being done behind the scene, especially when the body was first sent to a private morgue. When he died or he was declared dead at a private health facility, the body had to be transferred from that health facility to the Comparative Teaching Hospital's morgue as part of the strict adherence of COVID-19 protocol. So it's a state, I'm told, would take charge of the burial and any other issues related to the burial.
Now, that's quite tragic. This is going to hit the family very hard, is that not it?
Yes, the family has been hit coming at the back of the 1 week ceremony of the late Dr. Harry Owusu Boateng. I must say the family received the news of the passing of the presiding member, who was also the secretary for the Oforikrom MPP constituency, and we are told he even took part in the Saturday MPP primaries. So at the time that they had gathered for the 1 week ceremony, that is where news hit them that the late presiding member had passed away at about 9 a.m. Sunday.
Well, this is strongly linked to the brother's death by way of the infection, right?
It is not clear as to whether his late brother or the medical director infected him or he infected the medical director. What we do know is that the two of them live several kilometers apart. They don't live closer. They are not close to each other. But in the Ashanti region, when we are talking about hotspots for COVID-19, the Oforikrom municipality considers Ija, where he lives with the family, as one of the hotspots for COVID-19. So it won't be surprised to hear that probably he got the infection from the community where he lived or any other place. But as of now, no search or no research has confirmed that, no investigation has confirmed that he got the virus from his late brother or he infected his late brother. For now, it is too early to be talking about this, Roland.
Parliamentary, thank you for this great update, and we'll keep following this because greatly we would want to see how the family is doing as well as Joynews. But as Parliamentary and Love News are all following this, you should also know that we bring you the related conversations when it comes to coronavirus, because we also do know that over 500,000 final year students of various junior high schools are expected to go back to school. And that is up next. But we also do have business. And Sandra, how is it for you?
Roland?
Yeah.
Yes, definitely. We'll be back after the break for business, right?
Yeah, definitely.
I'll see you shortly. Don't be in a hurry to see me.
Definitely. Well, we're taking a break. When we come back, we have this more business for you.
Tana Roland, I'm here for you. Let's do business now. My name is Sandra Esenam. A very good evening to you, and let's do business. I'm doing this from home. The Public Interest and Accountability Committee, PIAC, says it wants to know how 1.5 billion cedi Petroleum Holding Fund was utilized. The committee says it has discovered that the said amount has not been accounted for and is therefore asking Parliament to summon the Finance Ministry for some clarity. This was made known at the launch of PIAC's 2019 annual report in Accra. Here's Ebenezer Sabote's report.
The 2019 annual report by the Public Interest and Accountability Committee, PIAC, revealed that Ghana has so far received $5.9 billion as revenue in the petroleum sector since the beginning of oil production in Ghana. Total oil production in 2019 went up by 15% as a result of higher volumes from the Jubilee and Sankofa Jinami fields. Despite this, the Public Interest and Accountability Committee, PIAC, says there is less to show on how proceeds from the commodity have been utilized. At the launch of the 2019 annual report, Chairman of PIAC, Waja, believes it is about time Parliament and all mandated institutions demand accountability.
We've done a lot of engagement with Parliament, and we can only continue to engage Parliament to address these issues. But I will say that since PIAC is a citizen-based committee, we need your support in this type of these matters when it comes up. That is the only way probably we can put much pressure on Parliament, because Parliament also represents us anyway. So if we, the committee, present issues to Parliament and there is a seemingly lack of interest, or maybe the interest is not so high in Parliament, I think citizens' backup will also be useful in putting some pressure on Parliament to act. And I think it is the very reason you are preferred. That is why we are also saying so.
For the third consecutive year, the Public Interest and Accountability Committee is raising concerns about the remaining funds, which amounted to 1.5 billion cedis yet to be accounted for. The committee is also making a proposal for the oil fund investment to be varied. Here is Technical Manager at PIAC, Mark Ajiman.
Because currently they are invested in safe instruments, so basically sovereign bonds. So we have recommended or proposed that this qualifying instrument should be varied so that parts of our petroleum funds will be invested in low-risk instruments, meaning low returns, and parts should be invested in high-risk instruments that will guarantee high returns. So that is to regards of the operations of the IAC. They are in place, they are restructuring IAC. They've met a lot of stakeholders and they are putting final touches to that restructuring process.
Meanwhile, gas production in 2019 was the highest in the country.
Away from that, Ghana's cocoa regulator, Cocoa Board, has signed a loan facility for productivity enhancement programs for the sector. The $600 million syndicated receivable-backed loan, which was signed in November last year, follows 2 years of negotiations between Cocoa Board and development finance institutions, including the African Development Bank. The fund is expected to shore up local production of cocoa, especially as demand soars amid the coronavirus pandemic. Charles Aite has more in the following report.
Already, Cocoa Board has drawn $200 million from the AFDB loan to embark on various cocoa projects, including pollination and pruning. Joseph Boahin Edu is Chief Executive of Cocoa Board, expressing confidence in increasing cocoa yields to 1.1 million tons of cocoa by 2026 and 2027 crop year.
Ghana Cocoa Board has set out to create a modernized, resilient, and competitive cocoa environment where all stakeholders strive towards a sustainable cocoa economy in which cocoa farmers and their communities thrive. Towards this end, Honorable Chairman, Cocoa Board seeks to raise the current productivity levels from 500 kilograms per hectare to an average of 1,000 kilograms per hectare by 2027.
Chief Executive of Cocoa Board, Joseph Boahin Edu, has downplayed a report from the Reuters news agency that international risk underwriters pulled back from the 2020 and 2021 cocoa syndication loan, citing COVID-19 risks. Speaking during the launch of the AFDB $600 million syndicated loan facility, Joseph Boahin Edu reiterated that Cocoa Board was in good standing with its international lenders, who are all prepared to sign up for the loan facility in September.
Management of Cocoa Board has cited various reportages on Cocoa Board syndication in newspapers and online news portals as Cocoa Board's inability to raise its planned $1.3 billion through a syndicate of banks, citing COVID-19 risk as the main reason. Management wishes to draw the attention of the international community and the general public that these publications are false and do not reflect the current engagements between Cocoa Board and the banks and financial institutions. It is worthy of note that Cocoa Board has prepaid the 2019-2020 loan facility in June 2020.
Meanwhile, board chair of Cocoa Board, Hackman Owusu-Wajiman, has challenged Cocoa Board to explore domestic ways of pre-financing cocoa projects in the coming years.
The minister would like to see us be able to pay for things ourselves and not go for loans. Despite the skillful accounting which has made us pay our syndicated loan 3 months ahead of time, we need to reinvigorate ourselves and make our minister happy and our president happy, and for that matter, his colleague in Cote d'Ivoire, Alassane Ouattara, also happy.
JICA and AFDB agreed to provide a $3.5 billion joint facility under the fourth phase of the Enhanced Private Sector Assistance for Africa initiative. The loan marks the first time JICA and AFDB will be providing direct co-financing under the EPSA4 as well as First Non-Sovereign projects.
Minister for Railway Development, Joe Gatti, has signed an official agreement with Chinese suppliers for the acquisition of some modern locomotive trains and standard gauge rolling stock for the construction of new railway lines in the country. The $230 million investment is to enhance commuter safety.
There will be 35 standard gauge trains which are being provided to us. Now, the total cost of this is $243,600,000. The supplier is Dongfang Electric International Corporation. As we're told by them through the Zoom meeting, is one of the big state-owned Chinese companies which is involved in supply of rolling stock. Our old lines are narrow gauge. And bear in mind that these narrow gauge lines were built, some of them in the 19th century. For example, the Accra to Insawam line was built from 1910 to 1912. And between 1910 and 1912, it has not seen any major rehabilitation, apart from the rehabilitation that was recently done by government after 2018. And so basically what we have done as government is that we decided to rehabilitate some of the narrow gauge lines. We rehabilitated a section of the Accra to Kumasi line, that's the Accra to Insawam section of the line, and the Accra to Tema section of the line. We rehabilitated the Takoradi, secondary Takoradi the Kojo Krom to Takwa section of the line. The total number of railway network that we have rehabilitated is about 120 kilometers. It's narrow gauge. It is the Old Testament. It takes smaller trains, slower trains. I mean, just our trains travel maybe 35, 40 kilometers per hour. Our entire new network is going to be a standard gauge network, which is 3,681 kilometers. That's what we propose. The Temai-Pakadan line is a standard gauge line. It's being constructed just now. The line that is being constructed in the western region is a standard gauge line. Last week we signed a contract with Amandi, which will lead to a total of 102 kilometers of standard gauge line, the longest single stretch of standard gauge line in the country. What is being negotiated on the eastern railway line is a standard gauge line. What is going to be done from Japon, because the Mpakadan line passes through Japon in the water region, and the line to Paga will take off from Japon. What is going to be done from Japon right to Paga, about 700 kilometers, it's a standard gauge line. We don't have any standard gauge trains in the country. What you see, the Ghana flag trains are narrow gauge lines.
Well, that's it for business. But Sandra, standard gauge lines and the narrow gauge.
Certainly some good news for the railway sector. I know you want to see more of me, but I'll surely be back after 8 p.m. with more business, Roland.
We'll see how that goes. Yeah, I'll wait for your second ride. Please make sure you have a great train ride. But next, we're having sports next, and Ureku Amofa is right here with the latest. We're ready with some fresh sports news. Oreko Ampofo is ready. And Oreko, what do you have for us?
Well, we do start off from some interesting news that has to do with the return of Ghana football. And CAF has reviewed steps to be taken by the Ghana Football Association before football can resume in Ghana following the coronavirus-induced break. Now, Africa's football governing body sent a 27-page document titled CAF Guidelines to Resume Football in Africa to the GFA, and in that document, there was emphasis drawn on the health of the major stakeholders, that's including the players, officials, fans, partners, and so on, as the essential element before football can restart in Ghana. Now, this comes at a time where the GFA is consulting major stakeholders in the country to ensure that resuming the game and CAF intervention will further strengthen the resolve to resume the game in Ghana and make it more safe. Now, my partner or my colleague, Benedict Owusu, has been speaking to Dr. Prince Pambo, who is a member of the CAF medical team.
To all member associations to indicate to CAF whether they want to continue their leagues, they want to cancel, or whatever plans they have. Of course, CAF also acknowledged the fact that it was going to be very difficult for member associations to really come out clear. And you realize that in this particular document, CAF did emphasize that this document would only serve as guidelines and recommendations after your government and your health authorities have given you the go-ahead to state competitions or to play football in your country. I have said over and over again that CAF does not own any football pitch anywhere. CAF does not own any country. So whatever we do from the point of CAF can only be suggestions. And we thought that, yes. So it kind of went through a series of steps, and the document you see brought together fitness coaches, elite coaches, technical people. It's not only medical. I mean, it had so many other things, but the key point was that a document of such nature needed to come out, given to various member associations. You are not tied down to use this document if you want to resume. If your local federation has another guiding document which you feel is superior to this, all associations are happy, of course, at liberty to use it. But CAF just thought that we needed to do this. And of course, if you read this document, it's quite deep, and personally, I feel it covered most grounds that associations would need to be able to resume football in the midst of this pandemic.
Doc, I've gone through the recommendations, and of course, I've seen that many of the things in there are as a result of what's been happening elsewhere. I'm talking about Germany, England, and Spain.
Right. Yeah, so basically, when it comes to medicine, the language is pretty simple. For instance, if you ask me here to tell you the causes of hypertension, okay, and the prevention of hypertension, whatever I say here from Ghana, from my home right here this morning, if you called my colleague in Manchester and asked him the same question, he's going to tell you the same things. I mean, so when it comes to putting together protocols for fighting COVID-19, I mean, no country has different protocols. We have the same. The same when it comes to sports. Football is football. I mean, 11v11 with a coach, with a technical bench and all that. So whatever recommendations any federation will be putting together is definitely going to look like what FIFA has done, what La Liga has done, what the EPL has done. So yes, that's how come you're seeing literally similar documents. It's the same language we are speaking.
That was Dr. Prince Pambo, who is a CAF Medical Committee member, And what he was talking about is the guidelines as to what Ghana has to do if the league does want to return. But let's now do some international news. And world number one Novak Djokovic has said that he is sorry after becoming the latest tennis player to test positive for COVID-19. Now he joins Dimitrov, Koric, and Cherokee after they all revealed that they had the coronavirus after playing Djokovic Adria Tour competition. Now Djokovic, who is age 33, played fellow Serb Cherokee in the first event in Belgrade. And in a post on Twitter, which you should be seeing a screenshot now on your screens, Djokovic mentioned that it had been too soon to stage that tournament. And I am deeply sorry that our tournament has caused harm, added Djokovic. He said that the tournament had been organized with a pure heart, good intentions, and a belief that they had met all the health protocols. We were wrong and it was too soon, Djokovic said. Now, the remainder of the Adria tournament events in Banja Luka and Sarajevo have been now cancelled, as Djokovic's brother George, who is the director of the tournament, has confirmed. We're trying to get you that screenshot. I think we might be having difficulties with that as well. But I think that's all the time would allow us for here on the sports segment. My name is Rick Wampo.
Let's turn attention to some more local news. And the Food and Drugs Authority in the Ashanti region says it has uncovered the sale and use of a drug known as dexamethasone, rumored to be a cure for COVID-19. The original head of the FDA, Nora Nakite-Labi, warns the abuse of the drug, which suppresses the immune system, could also derail the fight against coronavirus. Nana Ojima has more in the following report.
Dexamethasone is used in COVID-19 management in the United Kingdom, but for severe cases in which patients are on ventilators. It is used under strict and supervised condition in case management. Mrs. Telabi speaks about effects of using the medication without prescription.
This medicine is something that it is an immunosuppressant. It suppresses your immunity. Now, if you have COVID, or you think you don't have and you are just taking it as a prophylaxis or something, it means that you are already suppressing your immunity, or you are already suppressing your immune system. When you do that, you are then easily prone to the disease. Because when your immunity is low, that is when everything hits at you and it beats you big. And when you do that, should you contract the COVID, you get a very severe case of it. And then we cannot help you.
A preliminary check by the authority reveals the medication is being peddled in small quantities with the street name Dumpe Dumpe. Those sale of drugs in smaller pouches and hawking are both illegal in Ghana. The practice persists due to porous nature of the country's borders. Mrs. Telabi says the authority has mounted surveillance in and outside the region to track peddlers and users.
When you get the severe to critical stage and they give you the dexamethasone, it suppresses your immunity, so that because the COVID makes your immune system cells go into overdrive, so that your body is fighting against itself. So they use this to suppress your immunity, so that the medicines they are giving you can be able to work properly to fight the disease. But if you use it too early, then you lose this opportunity for your body being able, your body's immunity being able to be suppressed, so that you can fight the disease. And so we are pleading to people. One, it's prescription only, so there shouldn't be anybody out there selling this. It's not available to the general public. So anybody in Ashanti region and in Ghana as a whole, if you can hear me and anybody comes to you and say, please, this is the COVID medicine, report the person to the nearest police station. Yes. In fact, as we speak now, we have 2 teams out already, making sure, going around. But you see, it's not like you know that the people are sitting in this corner, so then you drive straight, probably you get the police involved and go there. So if anybody is watching me, if you are listening to my voice and you know of somebody who is going around selling anything as a cure for COVID, please let the FDA know.
The authority cautions against use of the all unapproved medication in fight against the virus. Officials advise strict observance of safety protocols and reporting all health conditions to the hospital. From Kumasi for Joynews, Nana Ojima reporting.
In education, over 500,000 final year junior high school students are expected to report to school on Monday, and it is to prepare for the basic education certificate examinations. Now, this follows the reopening of the universities and senior high schools, but the fear of a spike of coronavirus infections remain a concern for parents and government. But President Akufo-Addo is also optimistic strategies so far adopted will also help address potential rise in infections. Today at the Jubilee Conference of Basic Schools, heads met with the president to deliberate on plans towards the reopening of their schools. The president of the Conference of Heads of Basic Schools, Mercy Akayila Anuembi, demanded provision of PPEs and training of teachers to handle potential outbreaks of coronavirus.
We appeal to the government to make supply of adequate PPEs to enable us execute our mandate to perfection. Mr. President, a few weeks ago, you announced the partial easing of restrictions, which has resulted in the recall of the final year junior high students to come back to school to write their BECE exams. Let me use this opportunity to assure the President and the government that we have accepted the mandate fully and prepared to work very hard in these new normal times, with observation of all the needed protocols to ensure our children successfully write the BECE without any hitch. It is against this background that our preparedness to work that we appeal to the government to make supply of adequate PPEs to enable us execute our mandate to perfection. That notwithstanding, we appeal to you to ensure timely supply of PPEs, especially to the pre-urban and peri-urban areas. In addition, we call for timely training of head teachers and teachers to form the COVID team in our schools in order to equip us to handle suspected cases even before health workers come. Mr. President, we shall continue to engage all communities and disseminate the needed information to ensure that parents partner with us to ensure successful academic work without any hitch.
And the president also said government will not endanger the life of any child, assuring that PPEs will be made available for all schools by this weekend.
The logistic team of the government committee headed by Osafo has been responsible for distributing all the health and safety materials to the schools. They'll not be with you now, but over this weekend, all of them will be with you. We're making sure that every student that comes, and all of you, including the supporting staff, including the vigilance, everybody, will have at least 3 reusable masks each. The ones you're wearing is the same one as I'm wearing, which is washable and can be used and has been well documented. There are going to be sanitizers, there are going to be Veronica buckets, there's going to be thermometer guns. All those materials are also going to be delivered to you over the course of the weekend so that both you and the students can be safe. Some societies, unfortunately, when they opened the schools, saw a spike in the number of cases again. We want as much as possible to avoid that in Ghana so that our children will go back to school in safety and stay there in safety.
We have to take you to the newly created Savannah region, where Joynews checks in the newly created region is indicating that some senior high schools in 7 districts have not received personal protective equipment to prevent the spread of COVID-19 among final year and second year GO students. Our regional correspondent Isaac Nonya visited two of such schools in Damango in the West Gonja municipality and reports that Indewura Jakpa Senior High School Technical and Damango Senior High School, located in Damango in the West Gonja municipality, are all without PPEs. Management of the two senior high schools in Damango have since Monday decided to admit students into their dormitories. The headmaster of Indewura Jakpa Senior High School Technical is Thomas Adam.
Yes, school has resumed. Are your PPEs in place?
Not yet. You can just hear the sound of the aircraft. That is what they're just bringing. So I know in about 2 hours' time, we might also take delivery of our PPEs. As at yesterday, we had 8 Form 3 boys and 1 Form 2 girl. And they are the only students who are still in school as we speak. We had no checking. Already, the president advised that if they are coming, their parents should give them at least one reusable and washable face mask, so that when they come, they'll be using it until we take delivery of our materials. So, no infrared thermometer gun. So we couldn't take their temperatures, but we just allowed them in.
Well, the headmaster appealed to government to provide potable water to the school to avert the situation of students moving outside campus in search of water.
The minister met us with all the stakeholders in the region, and we all put to him that all the things that the do's and don'ts will not work unless there's water. And they have promised that they will see to it that they get us water supply. So we are yet waiting for them to see how they are going to tackle that issue. As for the students, if there's no water, we can't prevent them from going out because they have to go out and fetch water. As to the fencing of the school, you know that my school is in the heart of the town without a fence, and the thoroughfare is too much. Any part of the school is a path. People commute in and out through the school throughout, from morning to evening. In fact, the whole of the night they commute through. They've just broken into my brother's house and then a security man's bungalow to pick all their items.
Yes.
Just the day for yesterday. Yesterday morning they got up and that was done. So for this school, that's a big challenge for us.
In the absence of these, water and PPEs, the students said they were scared.
Really afraid as at now because we are not in the normal times, but the school is not fenced, and here is the case there. There are paths in the school where people pass in and out to their places. So this one, we are just looking up to the authorities to help us with that, because we don't know what will happen.
Then to us, we ourselves, the students, what we do is have to, if you see anybody passing.
So what will you do?
We try our best telling them not to pass by again. That is what we are doing for now.
I came in with my sanitizer and my nose gloves and everything before they allow me to enter the school.
This you know must?
No, that one is in, but this one, because I was that one, I decided to use my hand.
So how were you received inside?
How was I received? I was received by the senior house master.
How? Tell me how
he checked my nose marks and then my hand sanitizer and everything. Search inside my bag to see whether I brought what is needed to prevent the COVID-19 pandemic before he allowed me to enter inside the dormitory.
Now let's turn attention to some crime stories. And the police at New Takrady in the Western region has arrested an 18-year-old girl whose name has only been given as Perpetual Yankee for allegedly stealing a 10-month-old baby. Now, the baby was stolen on Friday, the 19th of June, 2020. The father of the baby, Robert Kobina, has been narrating to Joynews how his baby was stolen at the blind side of the family.
One boy now, the minimum cookie singing somewhere. I can't go on. I know a fair better for there. Get no wife friend. Get no we are banu. I can know maybe a jar friend. No, there, bear no a friend. There, young cry is the melee of one in your friend. It's Yama, uncle. It's usually a Yama no nature there. Get no boo banu. Wow, could different town. A bano, a Yako Kije, sister B, a Sunday, no, so Lutoya, Simibe Nodo, Anna Wamba, the sister no, Osha, Banulusu, no, Amano, Ugrano, Osanata, no initiative, no new pay. And so new pay, Damano, only share, they be, and near free, sister and catch an hour, may a bow. No better are there any better in the Mutuya bar. Na bed and catch assistant there. Hey, what's your baby? Are you now? Why be TV? Into my mom share Aquadan in him. Into a shout Aquadan in him. No win there. But now, why you now? No, what there were is Yama police station. No, what banner, what report into what report. You know, with two police for can. I can chase you no more walk share. I can chase you no. I get a bar. I get one.
The Divisional Crime Officer at the Takrady Central Police Station, Superintendent Xavier Ahiamadi, says the police have begun investigations into what led to the stealing of the baby. Superintendent Xavier Ahiamadi also added that the suspect would be arraigned before the courts by Wednesday.
The complainant in this case, Robert Kobina, is a trader and she lives at New Takrady with his girlfriend called Rosemont Bedi, alias Mami Mary. They have a 10-month-old baby. Now, on the day of the theft of the baby, complainant was going to have her bath, so she left the baby in the care of the suspect. The suspect visited them because she has a boyfriend in the house, so she was living with the boyfriend, who is also a tenant in the same house with the complainant. So the complainant left the baby in her care to go and have her bath. She returned from the bathroom and she couldn't find the baby. And the suspect, Akesi, also. So they mounted search, but the search proved abortive. So they decided to liaise with the police to find where the suspect had taken the baby to. So we also put our investigation machinery in place. And this led us to Esiama, where she took the baby to and was hiding there. So we got her this morning and brought her to face the law.
Let's come to Accra. Many passengers in Ablekuma were left stranded as a result of silent protests and withdrawal of services by commercial drivers who ply that route. The drivers had withdrawn their services just because of the deplorable nature of the Ablekuma stretch, which had degenerated from bad to worse. Now, the scarcity of vehicles forces stranded passengers to inadvertently breach the social distancing protocols by cramming on seats. Latif Idris report that instead of 3 on a row, 4 people occupied them.
The Ablekuma stretch has now gone back to default mode. The road is now in a terrible shape, and it has been over the years. And as usual, the people are wailing and crying and want a permanent fix of the stretch.
we see many potholes, many water gather around, and we suffer for the road. We not drive field.
Do you use the road every single day?
No, I used to pass sometimes, but not all the time. I want to make the government help us to repair the road givers. That's my matter.
Does it affect your car in any way?
Yeah, yeah.
How?
Sometimes our ball joint, more things spoil for our car under.
Okay.
Actually, as you can see, I mean, whenever it rains, these are some of the things we go through here. Especially the people around here, we face so much challenges. Sometimes the water used to come into our rooms, all that. Yeah.
So it's not just about the road?
No, it's not only about the road. But the one that passes through the estates, we have some estates here. Those are the waters that you see on the road as you are seeing us at now.
Okay.
You understand? So we are appealing. They should come and do something about it.
Okay.
For us. Yeah.
Is it your first time using this road?
Yeah, this is the first.
Give us your impression about what you are seeing.
This road is bad. Very, very bad.
Would you come back here next time if someone tries to bring you?
Come back. The person who take me didn't show me the place where, like I won't come. Because the road is bad. Very bad.
The road is so bad.
Bad.
The government is not paying attention to this.
And I'm sure you have been using this road.
Not really, but this is my second time of passing here.
Okay.
From the look of things, from what you can see here, see that the government is not sensitive to what is happening here.
So what do you want to see?
We just need to need them to attend to the road because from what you can see, it's not motorable. So do something about it.
On this Manhill stretch is where vehicle shock absorbers get shocked and eventually become defective. When vehicles slam into potholes, passengers feel it directly. Because of that, many drivers have refused to ply this route, forcing passengers to cram together and disregard social distancing. Any passenger who protests is either forced to disembark or verbally abused. But getting on board the vehicle is a real struggle. The unlucky ones are left stranded.
Rightly, we're back straight away. We go to Parliament. The Majority Leader, Ose Chairman Sabunsu, urging political parties to develop a mechanism that ultimately will help protect and grow members of Parliament.
There's no democracy anywhere in the world, in the entrenched democracies, where at the end of the life of a parliament, the sluice gates are opened for all comers. It doesn't exist anywhere in the world. It doesn't. Mr. Speaker, democracy everywhere in this world is guided and guarded. There's no democracy anywhere in the world that is for all comers. We should appreciate this, and the parties should build into their systems the mechanism to grow their parties in Parliament. Parliament is the bastion of democracy. It is not with the executive. It is not with the judiciary. It is the reason why, Mr. Speaker, whenever there is a coup d'etat, it's only Parliament that is prescribed. The executive is not prescribed. It dissolves and is supplanted by a new people who call themselves the executive. The judiciary continues in whatever form, whether or not it is termed as tribunals. They continue. Parliament is the arm of government that is prescribed. Parliament really is the shield and anchor of democracy. And a parliament that is not strong, the Speaker, derogates from the democracy that is being practiced in any part of this world. Mr. Speaker, as I said, for now, the political parties have constitutions that allow for sluice gates to be opened. And it's important that going forward, by the experiences that we have, last Thursday I was saying that I shudder to think of what may happen to us and indeed to Parliament 2 elections from now. Speaker, we have elections, internal elections, and 1/4 of sitting members of Parliament are jettisoned. 25%. It cannot be healthy for the growth of Parliament. It cannot. By any stretch of imagination, it cannot be good for the development of our Parliament.
On the other hand, the minority leader Haruna Idrisu called for a national dialogue to address the issue of money in politics.
To those who have survived what I call the political tsunami or tornado and the competitive democratic politics of the new patriotic party, to the majority leader and first deputy, and to many others who have been able to make it, we wish them well. And Mr. Speaker, to those who have not been able, better luck next time, as you yourself have intimated. But Mr. Speaker, there is concern. There is concern whether the votes reflect whether the members of Parliament are unpopular, whether government is unpopular, or money is popular. That is a concern. For many of our very experienced members of Parliament, to be swept away by the power of money politics. Mr. Speaker, myself and the majority leader have been discussing this concept, and I know yourself you are concerned. Wither away the sovereign Parliament, wither away Parliament as a citadel of democracy. We need to protect the sanctity and integrity of this House. And I'm not saying just akin to the new patriotic party. In my party, sometimes it may happen. The incident and magnitude may differ. But, Mr. Speaker, we will need a national conversation on the politics of monetization in our body politics. I mean, Mr. Speaker, for the chairman of the Finance Committee and chairman of Constitutional Legal, I can't mention everybody. It certainly doesn't warm my heart that I can imagine a tomorrow's Parliament without a Dr. Asibe Yobua or without the Honorable Banda. On my side, I've always said the Honorable Lecturer and Honorable Inusa Husseini. Maybe tomorrow, Mr. Speaker, the caucuses will have to strengthen our base and the way we relate to the main party, such that tomorrow we can ourselves make recommendations as to who can make it and who deserves our protection to keep our democracy alive.
And I think the Member of Parliament for Keta constituency is calling for a probe into what he described as display of opulence by the MPP as it just ended parliamentary primaries.
What really are your concerns?
Yeah, the opulence that characterized the recent MPP primaries is worrying and is mind-boggling. The kinds of monies that contestants were alleged to have doled out to delegates is really, really worrying. To the extent that we've heard, or it's been reported, that some contestants gave as much as 10,000 per delegate in a constituency where there are about over 500 delegates. So,
no evidence.
So it is worrying. Even though it's an allegation, it will be necessary for institutions like YOCO, SFO, and GRE, to look into some of these things for to authenticate whether indeed these rumors that are flying, creating perceptions all over are true or not. And if indeed they are true, then there's need for them to find out where people got these monies from. Because, for instance, if even they are gifts, one would expect that GRA will be taking tax from these persons who were giving these monies by way of gifts. So it's very important, and it's necessary for Yoko to really investigate how much these persons were earning and where they really got these monies from.
But these are chief executive officers. These are presidential staffers. Some of them are deputy chief of staff. I mean, they have their monthly salary. They work. I mean, they have contract. And so clearly, I mean, one could say that these were monies accrued from their sweat that was used for the primary.
Yeah. The most worrying aspect of it is the fact that most of the MPs who lost their seats lost to persons who were appointed by President Akufo-Addo as chief executives of state institutions.
Yeah, when the defeat is coming, you know, sometimes the MPs, they talk. And one of them is defeated member of parliament for the Odan constituency in the Eastern region, William Kwetu. He has blamed his defeat on chiefs in his constituency. The chair for the Education Committee in Parliament lost his bid to return to Parliament in the primaries of the ruling party over the weekend, and he lost to Alexander Akwesiakwa. Speaking to the media, Mr. Kwetu disclosed chiefs in his constituency have never hidden their dislike for him.
Very small area called Jedem, only 3 polling stations. It is the only Aboka town within the constituency. Since 1992, nobody from the Kotuku land has been an MP before. They say now they want their own to represent them. They want a Kotuku person to be an MP. And that is what they played. And it worked out. So I accept their decision. Do you know that even last 4 years, I know a number of chiefs called some big men there and told them that, look, from 1992, we have not had our own son, our own representing us. We want somebody to represent us. So they went for a search. The person they had to come and contest me, to them wasn't too good. And that is why he lost. But this time, this person was, of course, somewhat okay for them. And they could do people threw their weight behind him. I mean, look at what happened. The number of people who came there, their businessmen, everybody coming to support him. Yes, of course. I mean, I'm alone.
So the chiefs did play a role again in this?
Yes, yes, seriously. They won the seat. And the senior politician, they took the seat from me. They want their own to lead the constituency, and that's all.
But did money play any role?
Yeah, we all spend money. I mean, people wanted me to come back. There's some big men here. I cannot mention their name here. They all helped me. They paid money, I paid money. Okay? But of course, they paid more than me.
You should be jealous that some people...
I cannot mention that, please.
You should be jealous that some of your colleagues were protected. Do you feel that it should have been across board?
Well, not really. I mean, some were protected. I understand. I cannot compare myself to someone like Deputy Speaker.
And we have to do business. Sandra is ready with the latest update the second time around.
Hello, Roland. Let's do more business news, everyone. The CEO, the co-founder of FinTech Chamber, Arnold Kavapo, believes the resumption of charges on mobile money interoperability and interbank transactions should have been extended to a later date to make room for businesses and individuals to recover from the effects of the coronavirus pandemic. He's been justifying this proposal when I spoke to him earlier on the marketplace.
The approach of government from the beginning till now, they've taken digital as the way to go. And these things are absolutely important because you look at the transaction cost of fiscal money, you look at even the cash as an agent of spreading coronavirus itself is a big constraint. So if this was the opportunity for us to be able to, for once and for all, just drive home digital channels and say digital is good as gold and is good as cash, and that indeed people could just rely only on these services. I think that would be that would have been like a great idea. I'm not saying that we've not achieved success, as I've said. We've seen uptake grow significantly during this period. I think what would be important is to see this streamlined and not just a one-off activity, and then suddenly people go back to business as usual. I think that, for me, is the biggest risk that we take when we begin to say, okay, we are de-emphasizing digital channels and those things that used to be the main incentives for people adopting these channels. We're taking them out, and it almost creates the impression that this is no longer a priority. This is no longer a focus. I mean, absolutely, you make an important point, and I think the burden is shared also amongst all the participants in this. Indeed, for any business, there's a commercial consideration that needs to be made. People are taking haircuts. Some industries are really struggling under this virus. The key thing to remember is that businesses operate where customers exist, and when customers, their incomes are deteriorating, and that naturally affects their active participation in these models. And so businesses have to look at the commercial consideration as well. They have to look at market, because essentially you're a corporate citizen and you want to be responsible at that. So you want to be able to respond to the market when the market has challenges. You want to be able to sympathize with the market. And of course, there's also the part about government, which comes in the form of directives. And these directives are important. And businesses have to redesign their models. They have to, build special infrastructure to accommodate these directives, and so on and so forth. I'm not making the case that this is not the way to go. I'm not making the case that probably we are insensitive to government costs and so on and so forth. But I think the key point there is, if this was a success, have we achieved those success? If this was like the big card, which was going to see Ghana evolve into a full digitized banking sector.
The managing director of EcoBank Ghana, Daniel Sakite, says the impact of COVID-19 has affected ways of doing business. He believes banking services will never be the same even after the pandemic, urging financial institutions to re-strategize.
I think society will not be the same post-COVID era, even if a vaccine is found. And talking to a couple of individuals, we believe that one of the side effects or positive side effects of COVID-19 is drawing our attention to the basic hygiene factors. If for nothing at all, I think a lot more people have now imbibed, have now followed closely the hygiene factors, and you see people washing their hands more. So even COVID aside, I think that communicable diseases that are contracted through person-to-person infections can be limited because of the attention that we've had from some of the educational efforts that have gone on and are linked to COVID-19. As to whether it will be the same or not, if you link it, still staying in the health, and I'll attempt to have some basic ideas to what the health professionals like Dr. Nkengason does. I think the key thing is that how do we apply the lessons that we've learned from COVID-19? And I talked about hand washing, I talked about sanitizing, I talked about social distancing. The key thing is our ability to build health systems that are resilient. If we, by virtue of having to deal with COVID-19, there is greater investment in health facilities, then we would have a positive spin in terms of our ability to cope with similar effects that may come later. If I take it to the economic sphere, specifically into banking, banking will never be the same. One, for most of our clients, having been able to access the same services through the digital channels, it has been a game changer. It is true that most people were concerned about the safety of transaction online. Most people were concerned about the safety of accessing their accounts on their phones. However, COVID-19 accelerated that push because we did not have a choice but to transact.
And that was Managing Director of EcoBank Ghana, Daniel Saki. This is how Tuesday's trading went on the commodity market. Crude oil traded for $42.85 a barrel after losing by 0.53%. Gold, however, made 11.89% to sell at $1,766.32 an ounce. Let's take a look at the commodity market figures.
Well, that was a good one, Sandra. I did enjoy that, and definitely we'll have some business news to think about the next 24 hours. But for all that, we have to get all the latest updates, and we do have relevant social media platforms and myjoyonline.com. We have to take a break. When we come back, We'll try to do more before we wrap up.
Is it not amazing to you that people they are okay to go and vote in primaries? They are not afraid they'll get coronavirus. They are okay to go to the market. They are not afraid they'll get coronavirus. They are okay to go to the supermarket. They are okay to sit in trotro. They are okay to sit in a taxi. They are okay to go everywhere. But when it comes to church, it is like they are at the gate of the church. We are distributing coronavirus. That is what the devil is made people to think.
Archbishop, well, now wait. So we have more of those comments just beneath that video there, and Bishop Ajay Nasari just emphasizing the point that, look, if we can do all these social activities, then we should have time for God. Come to church. Solomon Jojo Kobna, as our lead producer, loves the church as much as he can. I'm hoping that this Sunday he will be in church. But look, that'll be it for Joynews Prime. But make sure throughout the next 8 hours when you're sleeping, you wake up and it is right where you keep your dial. Joynews. That's it for this evening. Bye-bye.